Hello, my name is Jeremy Nathaniel Akers, and I'm going to show you a lightly and lovingly remixed version of a do-it-yourself workshop by Barry and Christian of the Liberators. I'm a member of the Liberators Network. It's a great place to learn and grow together, as you can see on the screen, and they offer experiences, opportunities to practice with these do-it-yourself workshops, many of which come from their blog posts and their Zombie Scrum Survival Guide. In this particular instance, this was a do-it-yourself workshop where they made use of the Ecocycle, one of the Liberating structures patterns, and combined it with a piece of research that they, original research they did around the Scrum team survey. Since I'm not currently engaged with the Scrum team, I thought about how to make this a bit more accessible and relevant to some of the contexts that I'm engaged in, especially in Web3 and these different DAOs. And I thought that a different piece of research, the work of Shared Flow States by J. van den Hout, might be an interesting way to remix and put this piece of research basically in the space that they had the Scrum team survey. I think the Scrum team survey work is phenomenal, but again, this is my version. And so, without further ado, let me show you how I would run through this. The intention for this video, before I get started, is actually to run through this workshop. If you want, you can effectively play this video for your team and go through the workshop together. Or you can just see how this thing gets hosted and make use of part or all of it in any way that you see fit. Go forth and be dangerous, humans. So what we're going to do is offer a simplified version of this do-it-yourself workshop that uses 3 different structures. The first act is going to be appreciative interviews. And what we're going to do is we're going to think back about a time and share success stories from the past. Then we're going to use Ecocycle Planning to create transparency and think about how things are going right now. And then finally, 15% solutions to identify improvements that we might make in the immediate upcoming future. Once more, this meetup is built around the factors for collective flow states from the work of J. van den Hout. I'll put a link to the research paper and to these slides in the description for this video. Grab a pen and a piece of paper. You're going to need that. So the first act, and feel free to pause and make use of the time boxes however you see fit. But the first act is going to be appreciative interviews. And appreciative interviews is going to ask us to break into small groups and share a story about a time when you worked on a successful team. The idea about appreciative interviews is to tell a story about a time that went similarly to how you want this time to go. So thinking about this successful story, what happened? What did the team do or not do? And what made success possible? So take 2 minutes to think about your own story individually, solo reflection time. Then take 12 minutes in small groups, and then come together as a whole group and debrief in about 6 minutes. That should only take 20 minutes, and you'll be surprised to find what similarities and differences are revealed in each other's stories. So pause the video and do that. Or not. I'm going to move on. We're going to get into the Ecocycle. So now, the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to show you this model that comes out of the work from J. van den Hout's work on shared flow states. And just take 2 minutes in silence and individually identify 2 aspects that you see from this model and that seem the most meaningful or impactful to you where you're at right now. Now, these could be factors that you already identified from this conversation you just had previously in the appreciative interviews. It might be something completely different. Both of those are awesome. But take 2 minutes and take a look at this thing and see what jumps out at you. Now, I'm not actually going to sit here for 2 minutes, so if you want, pause the video. The next step has a little bit of controversy, and I want to unpack that a little bit for you. The next step is going to be to take those two factors and share them in a small group and then debrief with the rest of the group. So in small groups, share those two biggest insights, those two factors that seem the most impactful or meaningful, and just compare notes with the other people. Just see what jumped out at you. Now, I know that after just 2 minutes of looking at that, it's going to feel like, well, yeah, but I don't know what that stuff means or how that stuff works or how the model fits together, blah, blah, blah. But the whole point about this stage is just to see what jumps out as instantly salient. What the intention is actually to create a bit of a hot take and to compare notes about what seems instantly relevant at, relatively speaking, a glance. So, and to compare notes about those things. And then go forward and build on that with a little bit of understanding in the ecocycle itself. So again, take 10 minutes to trade notes in small groups and 8 minutes to come back together as a whole group and do a harvest about what was revealed in discussion in those small groups. Like always, keep an eye out for similarities, things that were overlapped and corroborated across different individuals and groups, and as well as keep track of what is different. Where do we have a meaningful divergence of opinion? And where was there a little bit of tension, friction, or debate? Once you've had that interaction and done your harvest, then we're going to go back through and unpack and offer some more detail from yonder work on shared flow states. So I'm just going to read this. It is very word heavy. I'm going to avoid additional explanation because with all these words, this is going to say a lot. If you'd like my hot take on what this shit means, maybe we can do that in a different video. But without further ado, some theoretical background. So team flow is considered to be a function of shared experiences of flow during the execution of interdependent personal tasks in the interest of the team and comprises 3 core aspects. Individual team members together share the experience of flow by executing their interdependent tasks. 2, the team members deriving flow from the team dynamic, which is structured by 7 flow prerequisites: a collective ambition, a common goal, aligned personal goals, high skill integration, open communication, safety, and mutual commitment. And 3, team members sharing a dynamic that reflects a collective experience of flow defined by 4 specific characteristics: a sense of unity, a sense of joint progress, mutual trust, and holistic focus. Now, for the prerequisites of team flow. The 7 prerequisites are identified that foster the flow experience of individual team members within the team context. As noted above, the collective ambition is the reason the team members come together and the reason they feel connected to each other. This raison d'etre serves as the foundation of the other 6 prerequisites. It helps the team set clear and meaningful common goal that is shared by all team members. Team members contribute to the achievement of the common goal by setting aligned personal goals that are clearly defined, meaningful, proximal, and specific. This combination of individual and team-level goals clearly shows the division of labor in the team and promotes growth and development in the individual team members. During task distribution, all team members either select or are assigned one or more challenging tasks or roles that suit their preferences, talents, knowledge, and skills, which in turn fits the challenge skill match element of individual flow. Therefore, the aligned personal goals provide high skill integration by playing to each team member's strengths. In this way, individual abilities are optimally utilized and combined to create synergistic collaboration. Open communication supports team members' tacit knowledge about their contribution to the team and entails the provision of clear, constructive, and encouraging feedback on team members' personal tasks, the joint team task, and the process of collaboration. This real-time feedback not only promotes flow experiences, but helps team members coordinate their efforts toward achieving the common goal in the most efficient and effective way. Another critical element underpinning team flow is the safety to perform one's tasks as one sees fit in order to serve the interests of the team, with an implicit belief that it is safe to take risks as needed and the team will not embarrass, reject, or punish good faith efforts and communication. Failures necessarily remain a possibility, however, because the goals are challenging, and to achieve them, the team needs to integrate high skills. Safety within the team environment decreases team members' worries about the performance of the immediate tasks and promotes reciprocal trust. Concordant with this trust-based safety, team flow also requires that teammates engage with each other in ways that foster devotion and dedication to the team's desired common goal. This mutual commitment involves task-oriented coaching, holding oneself and others accountable, and taking responsibility as relevant in order to adapt one's work to the team's requirements and integrate one's activities with the common activities while causing the least possible disruption to others. In many ways, mutual commitment is a vital part of cooperation and focus, and therefore even a prerequisite for smooth cooperation. Everyone knows what the goals and processes are, and instead of distracting each other, everyone is fully engaged in interdependent tasks. These prerequisites for team flow foster an environment conducive to joint flow experiences in teams. Before we explore in detail how to create circumstances that foster such an environment, we will first describe the characteristics of team flow. The characteristics describe how team members experience the phenomenon of team flow and could, therefore, also function as indicators of the team flow experience. When a team experiences team flow, it shares a number of team-level constructs called characteristics of team flow. The first of these is a sense of unity, a shared feeling that the team members form a unit together by expressing the collective ambition of the team. This feeling contains cohesion, a loss of reflective self-consciousness with fellow team members, and a blending of egos. The feeling of unity is partly the result of setting aligned personal goals that each contribute to the common goal, which is in turn derived from the collective ambition. Second, there is mutual trust, the shared feeling of trust that allows joint tasks to be accomplished together, and team members to be vulnerable to the actions of their fellow team members. This feeling arises because open communication incites people to feel safe to act without fear of failure or unnecessarily judgmental criticism for errors or differences of opinion, and ensures that they know exactly how they are doing thanks to clear and immediate feedback. Thirdly, team members have a sense of joint progress, a shared feeling of progressing towards the team's goals together in close collaboration. This feeling arises because people communicate openly about the team's progress towards the common goal and everyone's contribution to that progress. Because of this open communication, everybody knows exactly how they are doing and which individual and joint actions their team level and personal goals will be required next. Finally, there is a holistic focus, or the realization that there exists among the team members a collective consciousness that is intent on pursuing the collective ambition, resulting in a shared focus upon team members' cooperation and the achievement of their goals. The degree to which the characteristics for team flow are present determines whether and to what extent team flow occurs. Team flow occurs when all team members are experiencing the four characteristics by means of a team dynamic created by the 7 prerequisites. The experience can differ in its intensity and duration, however, ranging from a theorized micro level of team flow to a full team flow. Occurs when all team members experience the characteristics at an optimal level for a given period of time. Research has shown that team flow is positively correlated with individual outcomes like general and current level of happiness, and individual flow experiences, as well as team level outcomes like team positivity and team performance. For the creation of an environment conducive to team flow, it would be useful to delineate the processes by which the prerequisites of team flow lead to the experience of its characteristics. And this is the basis of our study. Really interesting research. Go fucking read it. For the purposes of this workshop, though, what we're going to do is we're going to make use of the Ecocycle. So go ahead and draw this Ecocycle on a piece of paper with these 4 stages that are regeneration, or the gestation phase, the seed phase at the top left, moving into towards birth, this stage of minimum viability, to this stage at the top right of maturity, in which value is effortlessly being created and enjoyed, down to creative destruction, this phase of composting on the lower right. Make sure to to also include your scarcity trap on the left, the state in which not quite enough energy is going into these new ideas, and the rigidity trap, when you might be stuck in golden handcuffs, doing things that are not as useful as they once were, but are still working out okay enough. After the end of this, of the initial 6 sort of questions here, I'm going to introduce 2 additional possible traps, and you can let me know whether or not those are useful frames of reference or they just add clutter to your experience. So, in a moment, I'll offer you 6 sentences for you to complete in your own Ecocycle Planning illustration. For each sentence, you'll take 1 minute to write down your answer to the specific phrase with your current team or context in mind. So, for the space of regeneration, a factor that my squad is unaware of or hasn't started using is... One of the factors that my squad is unaware of or hasn't started using is... Now what you'll do is you'll just take note of either one of these 7 prerequisites, one of its particular elements, or one of the characteristics, or an element of the characteristic. And you'll put that down and just write it in the space of regeneration. Now, for the space that is birth. A factor my squad recently started using or investing time in is... A factor that my squad recently started using or investing time in is... Which one of these prerequisites, characteristics, or their micro-level components might be in the phase of minimum viability in your team context? First thought, best thought, as we'll be moving on. For maturity, a factor that provides lots of value for my squad is... A factor that provides lots of value for my squad is... And moving on to creative destruction. A factor we need to rethink, change, or compost is... A factor that we need to rethink, change, or compost is... Which of these might be up for time to pivot? And now moving on to the traps. The scarcity trap. A factor we consider valuable, talk about a lot, but somehow don't invest quite enough time in is... A factor that we consider valuable, talk about a lot, but somehow don't invest enough time in is... Which one jumps out as not getting enough time and energy as it gets lip service? And the rigidity trap. A factor we keep doing, despite we know that the current way of using it doesn't generate much value anymore is... A factor we keep doing, despite we know that the current way of using it isn't working as well as it once did, is now, that is the classic exercise of Ecocycle, the 4 phases plus 2 traps. I'm going to introduce 2 additional traps that I've taken note of that might be useful, might not. So let me know what you think in the comments, or send me a PM, on whatever platform. But I see 2 additional ways that we can actually get stuck from working this cycle in a nice, happy flow. The first is sort of right there in the middle. It is the chasm, sort of lifted from product development or the diffusion of innovation, the space of failure to launch, that thing that just isn't quite as integrated as it needs to be in order for us to move into maturity. Something is missing. The additional trap comes after creative destruction. So after you have composted something and released new energy, you've stopped doing something that takes a lot more time and resources, there is a possibility, a risk, that you use that energy in not particularly helpful ways, that are not well aligned with your purpose. And you can find yourself investing that energy in lots of different diversions. You can imagine that, hey, look, we've got new energy, new resources. Ooh, there's something some shiny new thing that I've always wanted to try. May not be particularly related to that common goal, but let's give it a go. This is a good opportunity. So we might get lost in a whole bunch of diversions if our purpose or intended outcome is not particularly clear, or we're not particularly committed to it, especially at this moment. So to integrate these additional possible traps, we've got 2 more sentences. So for the chasm, that failure to launch trap, a factor that we don't have a mature relationship with and need to take responsibility for is a factor we don't have a mature relationship with and need to take responsibility for is Is there one of these that you have been avoiding? And for that diversion trap, a factor we need to put back at the core of our attention is a factor we need to put back at the core of our attention is All right. So, like I said, let me know if those are particularly helpful frames, non-helpful frames, etc. Now that we have individually created these artifacts of our own situational assessment about the state of flow, take 2 minutes individually once more to just observe, what does the placement of these factors say about the state of flow in our squad? Where do you as an individual see connections between the various factors? What does it tell you? Again, take 2 minutes to do this individual reflective work, and then come together in small groups for 8 minutes to sort of compare notes, looking once more for what is shared in common, similarities, and what do you notice there may be meaningful differences of opinions. There is a desire often at this phase in the game to come back together in the all space. You can do that. I would avoid it, because the most important aspect is how our individual sense making sort of compares, contrasts, and is cross-pollinated. What we're trying to do is take advantage of the complexity and diversity of our perspectives. It's not necessary that we come to an agreement about what is capital T truth. But what we do want to do is expose our thinking to small pockets of one another so that we can sort of flesh out, again, once more, similarities and differences. So take 2 minutes to think about this individually, 8 minutes in small groups, 10 minutes total. Once you have done that initial sense making for the ecocycle, the next move is going to be to step into the future state. What are you going to do in response to this understanding, this newfound understanding about what your situation is? So, what factors do you need to change in order to improve the way you collaborate as a team or organization? What is a good first step to start improving? The 15% solution is one that requires no additional time, no additional resources, or no additional authority. So, look, what do you got in the kitchen, and what can you make out of it with just what you have on hand? Again, take 2 minutes to take this invitation seriously and figure out what you as an individual might do based on what you have available. And then take 8 minutes in small groups to think about how these actions might be integrated, maybe to get some feedback on what you think the game plan is, and figure out which ways you might support one another. Once more, at this step, there's not an explicit all phase because we want to take advantage of the diversity in potential actions rather than us come to some form of quote-unquote agreement about what we as a group are going to do. Why don't we have a whole bunch of individuals take a whole bunch of beneficial action and see what emerges as a result of that, rather than us thinking that somebody else is going to take responsibility for the group as a whole? Why don't we all take individual responsibility for improving the state of our collaboration? And we may notice that there's a lot of overlap, a lot of different rhyme or reason. Some of those things may not pan out. Some of those things may have unintended consequences. Figure a way to document these things so that you might be able to do some reflective work about realize how things went at a later date. But first, take 2 minutes to think about this individually and take 8 minutes in small groups to identify your own 15% solutions. Once you've done that, come back together and take 5 minutes to sort of compare notes, figure out where you might be able to document these activities, and figure out when you might want to reflect on how things went. Experimentation is a powerful, powerful tool. So if you can form a hypothesis, figure out what you're going to do to test out that hypothesis, identify what metrics or indicators might let you know whether or not things are working out as you intended or otherwise, and also generate a null hypothesis, identifying what you might see, hear, or notice that lets you know that your hypothesis is wrong. That could be incredibly valuable to think about and reflect at a later date. But just come together, sort of closing out your conversation, debriefing, and layering information and insight on top of one another. My name is Jeremy Nathaniel Akers. This has been a string of liberating structures inspired by Barry and Christian of the Liberators, including Appreciative Interviews, Ecocycle through the lens of shared flow states, and 15% solutions. This remix has been a production of the Wise Crowd's Liberating Structures DAO. Let me know how it's been useful and how you might take it out into the field. I appreciate your time, attention, and energy, and safe travels.